Thank you so much for staying tuned to this channel. Welcome to yet another edition of International Forum. I am Wilson Omasha. Well, today it is all about the Brazil presidential election. That Lula de Silva coming out top plus against the incumbent president Bolsonaro. But there are some topsy-turvy situation right now in Brazil because according to some pundits, just like Donald Trump's supporters and followers, they came out in mass to say that the election isn't free and fair. They are protesting, barricading the roads. Let's see how all these will pan out. That is why my guests will come in to really share their thoughts and, of course, their opinions about this election that saw the return of Lula da Silva. At first, he left the scene. He gave it to a strong follower, a strong believer, but he couldn't, or she rather couldn't, muscle the person of Bolsonaro that came into the scene due to one reason or the other. I wouldn't want to dive into it. I'll just leave that for my analysts to throw more light into. Before then, let's take a look at some stories making their rounds globally. Let's move straight down to Ukraine, where the war with Russia is still raging on. And this time around, the Ukrainians, it's like they are worst hit this time, in the sense that Russians targeted their infrastructure, took out electricity, and without electricity you cannot pump water, and that is leading to serious situation of water being needed right now, and they are in darkness. They are complaining about it. And apart from that, the Russians also disregarded the grain export deal with the UN. They choose to pull out. They are angry, saying that they are responsible for bombing the bridge in Crimea. And Putin made one very strong point. He said, look, the world, whatever you're seeing right now happening in Kiev and other parts of Ukraine, we can do more. If you want to interpret, you can say we can do worse. He said it boldly, without holding anyone any apology, because of what he's saying. The West is playing a dangerous game, and he's had it. It's like all out against Ukrainians, because thousands of people in Kiev, and of course it is around Kiev, they are like not really happy right now. Nobody's happy with the war situation. It's like the war is biting hard on them. And Zelensky said that Putin is truly taking this to another level. He didn't say every word about it. He even called on the UN, the US to do something definite about it. The big question now is, what do you think will happen right now? Do you think this will make Ukraine to listen, or will I say to agree to the terms of Vladimir Putin that states you should leave this region from under Russia, disband your army, and just go home? Do you think Zelensky will listen to that? Now, take a look at the costs of carrying out this war from both Russia and, of course, the Ukrainian side. Who is winning and who is losing? Now, according to a very wise man, in times of war, we don't have winners, neither do we have losers. Massive infrastructural destruction is happening right now in Ukraine, and the world is just wondering what will happen. The UN also, they cried out saying, what will now be the fate of the world? Knowing fully well that if that part of the Black Sea is blocked, grains will not get down to Europe and so many parts of the world. Africa also will be affected. How do you think all this will be resolved? Don't forget about the drones are sent also in some cities in Ukraine, called it kamikaze drone, and they are accusing Iran of supplying those drones, but still Putin is like having this mindset, all or nothing. Don't touch any part of us or else we'll react massively. Don't forget the stand of Israel. They don't want to supply weapons. They are saying that the relationship with Russia is still very much intact, but they can only supply medical aids. Yes, true. People that are wounded in Ukraine, of course, are in cause of the war. Now, Israeli election is coming very fast. Don't forget about the turbulence right now in Israel, about the Palestinian disturbance, about the attack, about the stone, about the rockets, about some Palestinians being killed to the extent that even affected one of Al Jazeera staff. A reporter that lost her life in course of all this rancor. And here we are, and there's an election coming. Now, do you think that the tension right now in the Middle East, the tension right now between the Israeli, the Palestinian, do you think is going to affect the outcome of this election? What about the prime minister that is there right now? You have Yash Atio, you have so many top men contending for positions. How do you think this election will really pan out? Because everyone is really interested in this election. Whoever takes over that particular seat of governance will go a long way to determine how far this really will go in terms of resolving the issues and, of course, the conflict regarding the Palestinians. Don't forget, we have hardline Israelis. Some are saying every land gotten will not be relinquished. Every land taken will not be resurrendered. Benjamin Netanyahu is there. We have the Kulik party, you just name it. They are all trying to make sure that the Israelis, they come out in mass to vote for them, saying that they have the heart of Israel. They have the mind of Israel. I'm moving straight down to India. The Mobi Bridge collapsed. Hundreds of persons lost their life due to the fact that this bridge collapsed. Though the bridge is over 100 years old, it was being refurbished, being restructured, being strengthened, so to speak, but it's like the repair works done on the bridge wasn't enough to handle the weight of persons in the bridge per time. You get to see the footage taken before the collapse. A guy was just there shaking the bridge from end to end, and the wire snapped. Over 100 persons lost their lives. Though some arrests have been made, and investigation is ongoing to find out what really went wrong. How come the bridge that was refurbished, restructured, repaired, and fixed just gave way like that? Many persons need to answer to this, and the government of the day, they're doing the best possible to really make sure that such a disastrous event do not happen. And of course, our heart goes out to the Indians, so that they will just have the fortitude to bear this irreparable loss. It's all about international forum, and the citizens of India, they are just there trying to just make sure that somewhere along the line this do not happen. You get to see kids losing their life. You get to see mothers crying. You get to see fathers willing. You get to see brothers trying to look out for their brothers. In this particular incident, the world stood still because of what happened in India, and because right now they are saying that if something isn't done about it, nothing will come out of it in terms of serving as a deterrent to these persons responsible for refurbishing this bridge, for restructuring the bridge, for making sure that this bridge do not really come again in this way. Talking about collapsing and hundreds of persons losing their lives. Well, this is not the first time to have the scenario of bridge collapse in India. It is not the second time, but this one is unique in the sense that the bridge was closed for repairs. It was repaired according to the engineer repaired the bridge. Now, if it's repaired or it was repaired, how come it couldn't take the weight of persons that were there using the bridge? And Mobi is a wonderful tourist site because of this same bridge. Our heart really goes out to these persons, the families that were affected negatively in course of the collapse of the bridge. And that's it on the news around the world right now. Let's take a look at what is happening in Brazil. And my analysts are here wanting to share their opinions and, of course, views. Join me to welcome Honorable Frank Amigo, a lecturer, Uniben, a political commentator, a public affairs analyst, and, of course, he's a clergyman. Welcome to International Forum. I appreciate your coming. All right. Okay. A little bit close to him is Cyril Okungbowa. Yes, like 2 years now, right? Or 3 years? Or even 4 years. He's been with me on this platform on the International Forum. He is a political analyst, political affairs commentator, and environmentalist. When you talk about issues bordering on governance, both locally and internationally, he is well-grounded. Cyril, welcome to International Forum.
Thank you.
After like 4 years?
Yes.
Or 5 years? It's been a while. It's been a while. Okay. It was somewhat of a tug of war between Bolsonaro, the incumbent president of Brazil, and of course Lula da Silva. People are christening him the father of democracy in Brazil. Though he left the scene for a while, they had to call him back. They're saying that what we're experiencing right now is not what you ought to experience. Please come and fix this. And it was a fierce battle because the Brazilians, for the first time in a long time, they were divided. But still, somewhere along the line, Lula da Silva came out tops. I want to start off with Honorable Frank Amigo. Were you surprised to see da Silva coming out tops in the election?
Yeah, not too surprising, except for the opponent that was surprised. Because from the antecedents of Lula, as it's popularly called, one would have expected that victory. And he got 50.9%, though narrow, but the summary is won. He won the election. And from the polls that went on, just to test run the whole process that panned out 2 days ago on Sunday, it was clear that Lula was going to win. And the sitting president started saying that if he did not win, he will go to court. He will do so many things. And commonly, if someone loses in an election, 5 things happens to him or her. And the first one has just happened to this outgoing president.
Bolsonaro.
Yes, the first thing that happened to him is denial. That's the first thing that happens to a politician that has lost in an election. After denial, the next thing, anger comes in, number 2. After anger, it starts bargaining. What do I do? Where do I go from here? After bargaining, it sets into depression. Either shortly or for a longer time, into depression. And the final stage a politician goes through after this election is to accept. So between the denier that is complaining about now that he should have won and the acceptance, all these processes must take place. So it's a normal response.
Normal response.
Yeah, he has lost, he has lost. He came from the prison to presidency. He's not the first. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo went through the same exercise. And as he has won now, Lula has won now, it will be his 3rd term. He first came up on board in 2003, later on, I think 2010 or thereabouts. So what we are saying now is an applause from major countries of the world, US, Canada, and all that. And very surprisingly, Putin has congratulated Lula. So can this joint congratulations, can these concerted congratulations bring about war between Russia and Ukraine? Since nobody is against these election results, everybody is agreeing that he won overwhelmingly and is applauded. Can this one bring about peace?
I think I'm the one asking the question. I know the one asking the question, so you just hold on. We'll come to that aspect.
Yes.
Really congratulating Lula da Silva. Cyril, well, from what he said it didn't come as a surprise to him. Though narrow victory, the only person that was surprised, according to his analysis, was the incumbent president. Do you share his views?
And he was very right to be surprised. First of all, it should be noted that in the democratic history of Brazil, the incumbent, as it were, Jair Bolsonaro, is the first president to have lost an election as an incumbent. So the indices are there, and the surprises are also normal. But I think the larger picture is, let's consider the issues that led to the re-emergence of Lula da Silva. First of all, I would like to say that in his advent, the first time he came out, there were issues that paved the way for him to be president, because he's had this repeated history of trying to be president since the 80s, and it never truly worked, except he had to make some changes and adaptations and appealed to certain phases of the society. As it were, if you look at the background of the individuals, you see just how varied they are. First of all, where they had the low economic downturns, prices were hiking unnecessarily, uncontrollable inflation, corruption in government and in the polity, you expect the citizens to want to desire peaceful change, and we've seen that. But when it came to the turn of Jair Bolsonaro, we also realized that the same things were at play. First of all, there was also an economic turmoil. Brazil was going through, just recovering from a depression of sort, and unemployment rate was at record low, 12%, which was half the previous indices has been recorded in previous administrations. So I think that what really makes the difference here is the electorate who have come out en masse. This time, very divided because the two individuals that were contesting had so much dissimilarities that it had to be the views that the electorate thought were best represented that had to take the day. For example, Lula da Silva has a very humble background from being an industrial worker, unionist, and he found certain first-hand experiences that caused him to desire a change in the polity. For example, he had an accident as a factory worker, and he knew the troubles he went through accessing healthcare. So for him, those were some of the issues that spurred him to desire better work conditions, better work environments, and better welfare for workers. And I think that was the beginning of his political journey. Now, once he got started, he realized that there was so much that had to change, the larger picture of governance. Prior to that time, Brazil, though being a democratic country, had been governed by selective representation. For example, you had the two arms of parliament having to represent their constituencies and cast votes to determine who becomes president. He was also very instrumental to the abolition of that system and the open voting, which is now in practice today. And his antecedents has been long in coming, and faithfully he was rewarded after several tries. But for Jair Bolsonaro, he is more of an elitist, comes from a military background, rose through the ranks, and became very powerful. And even though retired, one of the reasons the old system was really faulted was because, despite the fact that it was a microcosm of a democratic representation, you found the antecedents that it was only retired military generals that emerged as president. So it means that they could easily maneuver the entire process through that microcosm. And so that's why people wanted larger representation.
All right.
And today, we have the same people divided along the same lines. It's not just the fact that Lula da Silva lost. If you look at the electorate, Bolsonaro, rather. If you look at the electorate, you see just how passionate they are about their candidates. Some crying as I speak. There are pockets of protests.
We'll get to that point.
Over
we'll get to that point
country.
About the protests.
I think that, to round up, like my distinguished co-panelist here said, I think right now, what's expedient is to be a honorable sportsman. You've lost, you've lost. Yes, you have to take a tight runoff, and no doubt the margins are close. If you reduce it statistically, you see it as just a negligible percentage. But spread that out, you see it's over 2 million plus votes. However, the pressure point there for somebody like Jair Bolsonaro is that there are 5 million plus void votes. If those votes
we will come to that. Cyril, calm down. We'll come to that. We'll come to that. Calm down. All right. Now, he mentioned some factors that really worked against Bolsonaro, talking about the incumbent president, talked about the employment rate, talked about the economy, and we talked about the 5 million void votes. Wait, the president, because the president, is talking about. Do you think that would have made any difference?
A major difference. Because in leadership, we talk about people. And in our attempt to sever the followers from any given form of administration is to, on your own, determine your doomsday, as it were. And that's what has played out in the life of Bolsonaro. And he felt, once a military is always a military, and he felt he could have his way all the time. But this time around, he got disappointed. All those blockades on the way are normal responses to, quote, a victim now of elections. So his boys blocked everywhere. It's a normal response. As I said, there are 5 stages a defeated politician must go through. So it's just on the first now of denial that I did not lose. And the earlier he gets to the 5th one, which is acceptance, the better for him. Because all over the world, there were observers. Various countries have sent congratulatory messages to Lula, and that should in a way let Bolsonaro understand that he has lost. Let him look for a better way towards how to calm his nerves. But right now, he has not come to terms with his loss. So what I'm saying, in essence, is that people got tired. And their tiredness is not far from the present realities that we're going through. education nosedived, economy, even the areas that have to do with environment, especially the Amazon so all that. So a lot of things, just like Brazil is a major country among the Latin Americans. It's the largest, so to speak, and they're about 250 million in population. So that's not a country just like Nigeria you should toy with. Just like we're having in Nigeria now, we're having movements here and there. People, they got tired of a system. Same way in Nigeria, people are getting tired of a particular system. So that now panned out to become the advantage of Lula. And come the first day of January next year, he comes up as president of Brazil, being his third term. So when is a lesson for African leaders and leaders all over the world.
All right, now before we go to lessons, calm down. I will come back to the lessons, okay? Let's take a look at the burning issues on the ground. Now, from what he rightly said, protests here and there. Some are accusing him of taking the Trump's approach. That's what they're saying, right? What Donald Trump's followers did. They went to the Capitol and start protesting that this is like a replica of what happened in the U.S., that if the situation is not wrapped up, you might just see his followers going out on the street, might say to the parliament, to register a protest. And he's the incumbent president. You think he can really wrap this up? Cyril?
Well, I think the January 6th inquiry that has been instituted in the U.S. Congress is taking care of that. We've had a number of arrests and convictions, so I believe that there are natural processes to deal with those according to the law. Yes, there will always be dissidents who feel that they've been shortchanged, but the difference here is that you have somebody who is president, an incumbent, and his opinion is has very powerful implications. And so far, he hasn't seen that he lost the election. We talked about the issue of the 5 million plus void votes. The question really is, under what circumstances were those
votes voided?
Votes declared void? What are the pretexts? The reason is because he, as the leader of the country, already alleged that the only way he would lose is if he was rigged out. And we know that there's been a great deal of vendetta between himself and Lula da Silva. Don't forget that the judge who convicted Silva was quickly incorporated into his cabinet as justice minister, even though he's since left the cabinet. The point is that there's a great deal of history, and it had to take the Supreme Court to determine his release, given the fact that he had the pending appeal, and individuals with pending appeals ought not to be in jail. So that set him free. Having done well over 2 years in jail, and he came out, and of course you can understand the bad blood between them, and this in no small way would determine how the conflict will be resolved. For Lula, I think he's had his pound of flesh. He's come back to say, oh, I'm the man. The people want me, they've gotten me. And he also realizes, on the other hand, that there's been some level of apathy, some distance of electorates given the disappointments they witnessed. But it doesn't so much affect his base, because if you look at the spread from the demographies to the interpolation of the results, you realize that they were really, really close. I think the question right now is that, well, of course, we will look at those numbers, but it has the international community, we have the international community, larger international community, commending the elections and congratulating Lula da Silva. But I think that too is still as legit as it is, can also be seen from a different viewpoint, given Bolsonaro's foreign policy. Let's not underscore the fact that, undercut the fact rather that he was a far-right politician.
Far-right, yes.
And most of the leaders who are openly congratulating him presently are not just doing a lot of obligation, they are also leftists. And so it's natural for the victory to resonate better with them, given that they have their kind, somebody who represents their interests and values, and they know that this will in no small way drive the foreign policy of Brazil as a nation, one that is very, very strategic importance in the Americas, of course. But I think largely the issue boils down to how the conflict is handled. The sooner the man comes out to, we're expecting a statement from him today. I don't know what time. The world is really anticipating what he has to say. He has the option to either concede or to make a case that the election wasn't free and fair. Yeah, we have international observers and a lot of local and regional bodies who observe the elections, and they've certified it, an okay process. But we also know that sometimes the reports of this international community, or the observers as it were, may not be the entire reflection of the situation on ground. So let's not say that it's a perfect system. Because, for example, we've seen our own, to domesticate the issues, we've seen our local elections, you see flawed with irregularities, and the international community will still give it a pass. So I think that his claims, given the weight of his office, is not something that one should just dispose of.
All right.
I believe that they will follow the proper channels. But right now, the interest should be what is beyond the ambition of the individual, the greater good of the country, the greater good of society, because the loss of lives and properties, should those protests degenerate, would not be in the interest of the country.
All right. Now let's take a look at Bolsonaro saying that he didn't lose. Do you see this man going to court? Because that seems to be the mainstay in African politics. If it doesn't go your way, you can't go to court. Do you see the president right now going to court because of that 5 million votes that were voided?
Yeah, I'm still hinging my discussion on the reaction about any human being that has lost a particular thing. It's just on the first stage. He has not come to that consciousness that he has lost. So he can be saying so many things. It happens everywhere. In Nigeria, of course, Trump did so in US. But at the end of the day, he has come to accept it. So the earlier he accepts it, the better. If he's going to lay claim on the 5 million voided votes, for the votes to be voided, there's an electoral act. There is a system. There is a country's electoral umpire that decided that those votes be voided. And I'm sure in voiding those votes, due processes were followed. So let the outgoing president accept it. If he goes to court, he's not going to win. He's not winning. Because it's just the first phase to deny that I did not lose. You will soon realize that accepting the vote that Lula has won, the better for him.
But do you think as a president he may have this influence over the court?
If he had that influence, he would have had that over the electoral umpire. That would have been the easiest thing to do. That the opponent will now drag the case to court. It happens everywhere, even in Nigeria. That I will rig the elections, we'll meet in court. That threat is given by an incumbent. But as he lost, and the electoral umpire declared the results on Sunday, that goes to show that even if he goes to court, he likely may not win. Knowing fully well that the incarceration of Lula, it was actually 580 days, less than 2 years. He was put in jail, accused of misappropriation of funds and all whatnot. But he has come out of it. So could that be that the incumbent or the outgoing had a hand in it? Of course he had. So he is not happy that his government has been toppled by a simple majority vote that paved way for his opponent to win him. So if the court is there to approach, they have up to Supreme Court. Let him get there. But I tell you, he does not have enough evidence to buttress that. He is an incumbent, or he was an incumbent, as the case may be. So he should have been the one protecting his interests, not the one trying to go to court. It happens everywhere that as Trump also lost, they are friends. Trump and Bolsonaro, they are friends. And the way it has gone to be now is for him to just rest. If I had his phone number, I would have called him. Rest this matter. Because there's no, you're going to fool yourself the more. Because you're going to waste the resources of the poor nation in Brazil. Brazil is not a rich nation. So people are relying on Lula to revamp the economy. And he knew why he was there for some years. He did little or nothing. That you couldn't perpetrate anything that you can lay claim to that he did. Nobody saw anything. Otherwise, education went down, economy went down, so many challenges, not good enough relationship with international communities. So if he has the interest of Brazil and Brazilians at heart, he should just let go the loss of this election and forge ahead.
All right. But someone said the reason why Bolsonaro kind of, lost favor amongst the Brazilians because of the COVID-19 issue, coupled with the war between Russia and Ukraine. And that really dealt a blow on the Brazilian economy for Bolsonaro to start deforestation. When we talk about the Amazon forest, can it be put in perspective that led to the outcome of the election?
Well, these are very isolated issues. As isolated as they are of prime importance. For example, I think Lula's failed approach, Bolsonaro's failed approach to the COVID, because if he had put measures in place, Brazil would have come out stronger, all right? Except that he practically denied the existence of COVID-19 virus and insisted it was just a basic flu. And he carried on, and Brazil never really had any layer of protection to its borders or to the social interactions between citizens. And before we knew it, boom, the reality was catastrophic, to the end that in terms of infections and deaths, they were just about second to the United States, which is a larger country compared to them. So I think that not only shortly after that, himself had to come down with the COVID. So he had to be hit hard for him to acknowledge the reality. And if he had taken the cautionary measures, it would have been better for him. So that in itself would have affected the confidence of citizens who lost loved ones, who lost jobs, livelihoods, especially knowing that the president handled the situation poorly. Now, in retrospect, they can look back and say, okay, if the president had been proactive, perhaps this disaster wouldn't have happened, or it would have been mitigated so as not to reach the devastating extent it went. So I believe that one of the better ways that electorate will react is to go to the polls and teach him a lesson of his life, right? That's on the one hand. Economically, Brazil is not the only country that is feeling the hits from the war in Ukraine. As a matter of fact, Europe, the United States, and a great number of other countries are feeling the crunches of the impact of the war in Ukraine following the invasion by Russia. So that's a reality that cannot be denied. I think that another crime, you would say, from my perspective as an environmentalist, is the deforestation in the Amazon. The Amazon is a prime zone that, for environmentalists the world over, it's of utmost importance to keep the Amazon pristine because it is a booster zone. It's a buffer zone for the entire continent of the Americas. And the fact that they had to tamper with it would have also sparked some outrage. So give and take, I think Brazil is in a situation right now. And going forward, one of the better ways to handle this division is for Bolsonaro to do the right thing. But as it were, even the right thing as it were is subjective. Is it possible? I think the court eventually would have its say because the electorate who handle those votes and the materials, everything will be subpoenaed and to be studied, all right, to see if he has legitimate claims. It's not unlikely, let's not rule it out that it's not possible it was rigged or something happened. But I believe that the system has the requisite ability to investigate and see what comes out.
All right.
But yet, we're waiting on him so that we'll know his policy directions, if he wants to fight it through, or whether he wants to concede. Remains to be seen at this point.
All right, let's take a look at Lula da Silva. Someone saying, yes, it's like the Messiah being sorted after by Brazilians, but age may not be in his favor. Someone saying the Lula da Silva they used to know way back is quite different from the Lula da Silva that is presently with them. Do you think that is a factor?
Politically, that age won't be referred to as an elderly man in terms of politics. We have in Nigeria people that are much older than him, so they are still very active. So if any music is good, you play it again.
You play it again?
They play the first time, they play the second, and they're going to play the third time. This is third term. So I don't think that will be a major challenge for him because he has a blueprint, as it were, as to how Brazil should be governed. First is to revamp the economy. Anything that affects the common man is the outcry. And economy is fixed, then education is restored, then people can have a sigh of relief that truly this is a Messiah we'll be looking for. He has been tested. Maybe now they have trusted him. For him to win an incumbent, that goes to show the confidence they have reposed in him. And they are also taking that risk openly. That whatever plays out from the winning of Lula, we'll take the blame. So the Brazilians have considered so many things that no matter the worst part of Lula, it will be better than the best of Bolsonaro. Yeah, that's a challenge before them. Otherwise, they would have voted the incumbent out.
Okay. All right. Asir, do you agree to his own comment on this particular issue, the age factor?
You don't have to beg. I disagree.
I beg to differ. With all sense of humility, we have to find the right euphemisms to raise our point so that we don't cut across as offensive. One thing here is that we appear on this panel to be totally underrating the personage of Jair Bolsonaro. I'd like to state for the record here that this man, before he became president, has been in Congress for 27 years. So as far as the polity goes, he knows who is who in the society. And being president, we find that these people in these offices are very resourceful, given that they have a lot of intelligence at their disposal. I have to let you know that when elections are going out in the public, the candidates have their war room where the data come in. If there are pressure points or troubled regions, they already spot it in their own calculations before the results are eventually declared. If you look at this election, yes, the process may appear free and fair, but you see the disparity in terms of number is not so far-fetched. It's a simple majority. You can't call it an overwhelming majority. It's like, Brazilians are calling for a new lease of life. You cannot just cast down about a vote of about 58 million plus people. You understand what I mean? So those have valid stake in this election. And I believe that going forward, if he had an overwhelming majority, there wouldn't have been a need for the runoff. It was a tight race. That is why they went for the runoff, to eventually see of the election. Of course, that's how the Brazilian system works. But we've seen one president in the history of Brazil has actually won an election in one single outing with having to go through a runoff. But that's overwhelming popularity. On this issue, you can't exactly say that Lula da Silva is, in quotes, far more popular than Jair Bolsonaro. It's almost a split situation, right?
It's like you're talking about Bolsonaro right now about the outcome of the election.
I'm just trying to be as objective as possible.
Right.
That is where the 5 million void votes come in, very importantly. Because if you look at the 5 million votes, it's split it. You can see that this election could have gone either way.
Are you not saying that those 5 million voided votes or votes that were void, that is like all of people that voted for Bolsonaro are not for Lula da Silva? Is that what you're saying right now?
I believe that those votes, if you look at the general spread of the results, you believe that those votes were shared between these two individuals.
Yeah.
And only one could have had the tilting advantage. But it remains to be seen until the court finds a way to look into that situation and find out exactly what happened. Are we saying that it's possible that the election wasn't flawed in any way? That remains to be seen. I believe that we should have confidence in the system, in the judicial system, to unearth whatever may be wrong. And if the man finds out that the election was just as free and fair and those void votes were duly worthy of being void, he has no choice than to concede. But right now, my take is for the people of Brazil, for the peace and the stability of the polity. We have pockets of protest here and there, and I think that the sooner the leader steps out to give a direction, I think the better it will be for the country. All
right, now you mentioned the 5 steps of, will I call it now, great the politician losing. The first, that's what he's in right now, denial, according to your own analysis, denial. And of course, you have some, pockets of protest around the building up to be something else if it's not wrapped up. and Bolsonaro is not saying anything. Do you think, when you talk about political career of the president, though he's still the president, do you think this is the beginning of the end of his career, knowing fully well that he's been in Congress for over 27 years?
Yeah. The career has been to maybe trying to come back to president of Brazil is cancelled. Not that it has ended. When it ends, it shows you could still trace it. My colleague here is sympathizing with Bolsonaro. But his sympathy is taken too far. An incumbent is won. It was 0.1% victory. To me, it's overwhelming. Incumbent. For an opponent to meet you at home and beat you hands down, he said it was a mistake. Even if the vote, which we know will not be all in favor of the incumbent, even if it is okay, take the 5 million votes, he still will not win.
Of course he does. He wins. Look at the margin. The margin is just about 2 million. He wins.
No, hold on.
3 million votes to spare.
Hold on. Cyril, if you talk about 5 million to 2 million, it could go both ways.
No, he said even if you appropriate the entire 5 million votes, so J. Bolsonaro, he wins with about 3 million votes to spare.
Yeah.
All right, so go ahead.
He's still sympathizing with.
No. It's the reality. If not, for example, if you had, if the margin was 20 million, and you have 5 million void votes,
that point, yes,
he will
win. Okay, he will win if it's given to him. But I know that you just can't give the 5 million votes to him. All right.
Not.
So continue with the point you're making. Yeah.
Okay. I still sympathize with you. I sympathize with. He has lost.
Yeah.
And going by the incumbency, somebody comes from outside and wins. If Lula were to be the incumbent and Bolsonaro came and he also won him like this, to me it's overwhelming. You had the power. You had everything at your disposal, as you have it commonly in developing countries. A sitting president, the various other arms of government as at his beck and call. You were there as an incumbent president. The electoral umpire declared you to be the loser. That means you lost. You actually lost. If you're claiming that Lula manipulated, which is not a common occurrence for an opposition to come and manipulate, it's not a common thing.
No, he allegedly said that it was rigged out.
Yes, it was. That claim is unfounded. An incumbent to be rigged out, just like Donald Trump also claimed that it was rigged out, is the first step a defeated politician will claim. He will deny it, that this matter won't end here. Has it not happened? Various presidential elections, even governorship, that we are going to anywhere to get justice. They get there, they come back, they go like a lion, they come back like a lamb, humbled. So what Bolsonaro is saying now is to kind of empower his followers. That you see, I actually wanted to protest. The people begged me. You don't want to just give up like that you lost. Okay, let's hype him now that you lost gallantly. Then go and sit down. Let governors continue.
Like you lost gallantly.
Yeah, let's help him.
Okay. Cyril, over to you. That the man lost gallantly. This was gallant,
Yes.
so color.
You know why it is important to verify the transparency of the process. There are a lot of people with varying interests who would want different outcomes in this election. Don't forget that President J. Bolsonaro had been attacked in daylight, open daylight in a campaign rally. He was barely lucky to survive.
That was the first time he came for the presidency. And that gave him sympathy votes. Don't forget that also.
So the man had the man had to go out, even till now, wearing bulletproof and knife-proof underclothing, vest to keep himself alive. So now the question is, who are those who wanted him dead? Who are those who saw him as a threat to the establishment? And if those elements are taken into consideration, how far would they go to see that he fails? These are legitimate questions. Anybody who's been spooked to that extent has the right to cry out that there are people who are after him. And if he knows that these people are powerful, then he knows that they might do one or two to rig him out of the process, since they couldn't get him, since they couldn't assassinate him. So I'm saying now that there is a larger picture to these claims, and we're waiting on the the system, which we, by the grace of God, repose so much confidence in, the democratic institution in Brazil is not as strong as the USA. This will be a test yet to see how transparent their democratic process is. So if the man claims that he has legitimate information that has been rigged out, he needs to bring it to the fore. And the independent investigators will go in and see what they can make of it. Simple matter.
Yes. I think I won't beg to disagree. Actually, I disagree with you. Because it was that same electoral umpire that betted the incoming of the outgoing. When he won, did he complain? Did he go to court? Court, I won. I want to challenge my victory. Did he challenge it? That same electoral umpire that declared you winner previously is still saying that you have lost. So why would you repose confidence in them? Did you go to court? As I've said again, over and over again, it's the first thing that I did not lose. For my sake and for the sake of my followers, I did not lose. And you come back to his full consciousness very soon. If you could bring two of us back, you discover that Bolsonaro will tell you, sorry, after I gave you the 5 stages, he will deny. The next thing he will be angry. Anger is coming in now. The next thing now, what will we do? We'll start bargaining. How do we run this thing now? From there, it goes into depression. Finally, he accepts. We're going to see acceptance as from January. Once Lula takes over, first day of January, to shout Happy New Year in the new office, Bolsonaro will tell all of us again that I have accepted the loss. What do we do?
What do we do? Now, Brazilians turning from the far right to the far left. Do you think it's going to be a kind of a swift or painful change for them? Silva.
Well, looking at the election data, you see that the people on the far right and those on the extreme left are almost at par in terms of numbers and distribution. So I think adaptation is the key word, because most of these would come in government policies and the foreign policy of the government. On a personal basis, as far as the rights of the individuals are protected within the ambits of the Constitution, it may not pinch more than they can bear. So I believe that give and take society should carry on, and everybody will have to adapt. That's what we expect.
Do you see them adapting? Because when somebody, gearing to go out there in the streets, saying, look, we have to reclaim the mandate now, so to speak of Bolsonaro. How do you think they can really adapt?
It's very simple. Adaptability is one of the major functions of any living thing. Like, I've not been paid for the past 8 months. I've adapted as though...
Not again.
Adaptability is part of it. People are going to come to the full consciousness very soon that we have moved to the right all this while. Okay, let's move towards the left. In a short while, even in Nigeria, petrol pump price has gone up. Nobody is asking any question. We have adapted in 24 hours. Fares have increased. We have adapted. People have been sacked by flood. We have adapted. So it's part of human existence. You must learn to adapt. In bereavement, nobody dies with the dead. You adapt. So Bolsonaro should adapt, even as the citizens of Brazil would have adapted. Because they all went out to jubilate in the face of opposition from the side of the outgoing president. That's the normal life experience. They should adapt. If they don't adapt, then they can be hostilized, treated, and they will recover. They should adapt.
All right. Now, talking about the electoral empire, you should give at least near 100%. We talk about a performance. No hitches, nothing, just go out there. A number of times it took them to really conduct the election. According to reports, there were no skirmish here and there about the electoral body of Brazil. I think you should give it to them. What do you think about that?
Well, I think they've done an okay job, but until whatever claims, he participated actively in the election.
Yes, he did.
And so he has the right to accept the outcome or disagree with the outcome. It's fundamental, it's basic fundamental rights. So I believe that even when there are not largely reported incidents of disturbances or violence, you find that there are always skirmishes as part of elections. For example, In the U.S. right now, as they're approaching the midterm elections, especially in states where you've had early voting, there are issues. There are people who go there armed. And normally, people shouldn't go to polling stations with arms, you know.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of this and that, which would eventually, has the potential to affect the final result of the election. So until these claims are investigated, and it is proven beyond reasonable doubt to all and sundry, all interested and disinterested parties, that this election was free and fair, then that should be the way to go.
It's like you like Bolsonaro a lot. You love that man.
It's
a lot.
obvious.
From the way you're talking, it's like something is wrong somewhere.
The man has
It's
a
wrong
claim.
somewhere.
He has a claim.
Are you in tune with that claim?
He
Or
participated
with
in
these
the
claims?
election. He participated in the election.
Yeah.
He has an ongoing vendetta with the president in waiting, who has been declared winner. All right, to the extent that Lula Silva had to go to jail.
Because of him.
Not really because of him. The allegations were on those of corruption and money laundering.
But he was at the middle of it all.
Well, I think that issue eventually was scuttled, giving some internal dynamics or interplay of the law.
As an incumbent.
No, he was already out of office when he was arrested and jailed.
And then Bolsonaro was the one in charge.
Yes, he was freed by the Supreme
what I was
Court.
saying.
He was freed by the Supreme Court
All right.
on some
Technical
technical
grounds.
basis.
That the incumbent president could not manipulate.
Otherwise, he was already doing time
Yeah.
for a crime. He spent over 2 years
True.
in jail. Now the question now is, was he guilty? The process never went through to let the electors know what is what. But he still has those controversies hanging over him. And we'll see how it goes.
And he won.
And the electoral umpire declared him the winner.
Winner.
He was cleared to run. The Supreme Court cleared him to
They
run.
declared him, that's all.
And he won. Okay, now what
On the
advice
basis
do you
of
have?
technicalities.
What
But he won.
advice, gentlemen, what advice now, because the time is up, what advice do you have for the Brazilians out there, human in the streets, blocking the road, saying this election is not free and fair, it was rigged, our own Bolsonaro was rigged out?
Congratulations, Brazil and Brazilians. You have had the so much desired president in the person of Lula, and your cooperation is needed to ensure that all that you have yearned for over the years will come to reality.
That's it.
Simple.
Over to you.
I think at this point we'll have to borrow a leaf from outgoing President Goodluck Jonathan, who says the ambition of any individual
It's not
is
what.
not worth the blood of any man. So I think it's time for Bolsonaro to be the bigger man. Even though he wants to pursue the course of his claims, he should do it in a civil way so that lives and properties are protected, so that Brazil can make progress as a nation. There's so much they're recovering from. Even the president who won the election, president-elect, cannot deliver in such a short term, because there are a lot of extrinsic factors affecting the economy.
Well,
the one Ukraine,
you are not the Silva right now.
so I think that all Brazilians need to,
Yes.
they need to be in support. Their hands need to be on deck,
Yeah. Thank
so that
you.
the man can concentrate
All right.
and get the job done.
Well, you've heard both of them. For the way they are speaking, you know who their hearts bidding towards or bidding for. You can clearly say that one is for the Silva, the other is for Bolsonaro, but it was, fierce elections. As in both parties, they have their backings. They came out in mass, all guns blazing, all cards blazing. They went out there to vote, and someone came out top. Well, one is not satisfied. Let's see if he's going to push through to the Supreme Court. You never can tell. 5 million votes voided. What can you make out of that election? Only time will tell. Once more, congratulations, Brazil. And of course, thank you so much, gentlemen. Appreciate your wonderful analysis.
Thanks.
We'll do it next week, Tuesday.
Thank you,
God
Alex.
willing. Bye for now.